You discovered The Outsiders back in eighth grade, and it had a profound impact on you then. What has it been like getting to revisit this timeless story in adulthood, and how's that connection with it evolved?
Um, I mean, so many things to say. I read the book first in eighth grade. I was new to a school I just transferred to. It was a smaller private school. Before that, I was at a public school. It's called the Pine School. My teacher was Pat Stewart, eighth grade English. It was, I think, second semester. I remember it very well. And I think the big things we were doing were we had the outsiders, and then we were learning about this race, I think, with sled dogs called the Iditarod. And they were very kind of interactive experiences. It was a lot of like reading chapters of the book, watching parts of the film, or watching parts of these races and stuff, and writing essays on them. She was a wonderful teacher and really got us involved in projects and things. And with the Outsiders, I just remember I kind of liked the aesthetic of it as a kid. I liked like the cover of the book and the gritty kind of aspect of it. I liked the characters' names. And so just um, without even going into the story, overall, it kind of attracted me as a young boy growing up. I thought the story was cool, you know? And then once I started to actually read it, it was dark. It was dark
Hmm.
for something to be reading at that time. And there's murder, and there's you know drinking and violence and gang violence and all this warfare and everything going on, but it felt so close to home at the same time. And it felt very real. And it was odd to think, oh, the girl who wrote this was this old when she wrote this. And the people we're talking about are, wait, that character is only 4 years older than me now. Like, so
Mm.
understanding it from that lens was really exciting. And also, I was the new kid at the school at that time. So this was my first year at a school that was a little more insular. A lot of those kids had gone there their whole lives. So here I am coming in eighth grade, new kid. And so I just remember massively being impacted by the book, loving it. And I would say though, past that point, that was really it. Like, and then I just always remembered and knew what The Outsiders was. I loved watching the film. I loved reading the book. And then it really wasn't until a few many years later, and then I'm hearing about it potentially becoming a musical,
Hmm.
and then we can get into that, but eventually down the road coming into contact with it again. I would say that was my first interaction with it, and it was pretty exciting.
Bob plays such an integral role in pushing this narrative forward and bringing that darkness to the story, like you were saying. So often, when you're playing the antagonist, they see themselves as the hero in their own stories. And it must be so interesting for you as an actor embodying this character. How have you been able to find Bob's motivations and his why and purpose? And how do you approach him without judgment?
Yeah, well, I do a lot of ritualistic praying, and I think you saw on my Instagram story. I got to do like eating a lot of kale and greens,
Mm.
and I'm totally kidding with you, Kevin. Um, I think I think overall it's every character, it's all the same. It's all part of humanity. So in a holistic way, it's just you approach it as you would anything. You get into why are they doing what they're doing? Where are they? How do I move? How is this person similar to me, different than me? How do I come at this? There's so many different approaches to embodying a role, character, in whatever way that someone views that part of our job. I think specific to me in this moment in my life with Bob, I got to do it in La Jolla as well, and I
Hmm.
got to audition for that, which was 6 months before that. I've gotten to do workshops of it, so I've gotten to live with the story and the role for a while. That's been exciting because having such a long time in the incubation process, and while the material is shifting and changing around me, to be a part of something, workshopping it and getting it to this frozen form, which then still is shifting day by day,
Hmm.
live, has been really exciting. I think the biggest thing has just been remembering it's all layers. There's never one answer. So it's just layers. Every aha moment is just additive. It's not the new answer. It's just part of
Mm.
why. And it's kind of like life, right? Like you learn something new about yourself. And I remember when I was younger, I used to say, "Oh, that's the answer to everything." And then you begin to realize that's one part of this now that I realize, and this is another part. So I think with the character building process and something like Bob, it's you know one chunk of time, it's realizing the physicality and the impulsiveness and where that lives in me and what that is, and then another time it's zooming out and looking at the bigger picture, and how does this kind of relate to what's going on in the world now, and what is my relationship to the story overall. And then it's, yes, it's quote unquote the villain, but how do I see the contrast in that, and
Hmm.
what is my side of this story. And then another time it's going, hey, I know I'm in my 20s now, but what was it like when I was 16, 17, 18? It's not that far away from me, but every year in your 20s is like dog years. So 18 years old is very different than 25. It's very different than 30. It's very, what I mean?
Hmm.
And each one of those discoveries just layers in to how I approach the role. And then what's really exciting is everyone who's around me. The cast has shifted, the some of the scenic elements, the lights, things continue to shift around me, and that affects how I approach it. And then finally, because it's live, week to week and night to night, based on the audience, based on the temperature outside that day,
Yeah.
based on who's on stage with me, shifts the chemistry of everything, and then where I'm at. And as I, just as Kevin, continue to shift. So I know that was a bit of a long-winded way of answering, like, how do I approach the character? And I would imagine, the biggest question you're asking is probably like, it's so easy with quote unquote villainous, darker characters to be one note with it.
Hmm.
Of course, that would never be my goal. It would be to bring as much humanity as I can to it. And I think, once again, talking about childhood, as a kid, I was always drawn to um, the opposition and to understanding, well, why is that person being like that? So it's
Yeah.
what you ask for. Sometimes I had such an intrigue in that, and I've been fortunate enough the past few years of my life to be able to inhabit a few characters that kind of live in this world of the darkness and bringing that contrast to the story. And I think it takes a certain level of, I don't want to say maturity, but there's a certain level of patience to inhabiting ghosts of those kinds of stories, and and trusting in the process of that, um, and trusting in what other people are seeing while you're doing it, because it's not always as
Mm.
obviously written where, like, oh, now there's applause and you're the hero and you're doing this. You don't, some of the things we don't realize that we're getting as confirmation of good job, or even for ourselves, the way we feel. I might not feel good walking off the stage, but learning that within this role, that's actually sometimes the right feeling to have. So
Yeah.
I might not feel like I just won when I walk off. I might not feel heroic and go, I crushed, right? Sometimes I do, but I might not feel that as Kevin, the artist. But sometimes that's actually a very good indicator that something real happened in the moment, where my
Mm.
was at a deep loss and I did do something hurtful to someone. And so that really happened. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Learning that, and that just comes with time. Yeah.
Yeah, beautifully said. And perfect segue was the next question, but it was also really important to that creative team that the ensemble felt empowered to play in this sandbox that they've created. How did that trust allow you to take agency over Bob's journey throughout the years and the creative decisions that you made throughout this process?
I think the best thing is that we're a community. I'm so fortunate. I'm so close with all of these boys and girls in the cast and everyone that we're working with. I mean, we have created a wonderful community. We circle up, literally. If you saw at the end of we circle up before shows, um, and we'll kind of, if anyone has anything they want to share. Sometimes it was more guided. Sometimes now it's a little looser, an open share, and just setting intentions and things, clearing the air, having good communication at all times, and realizing that we're only as strong as our weakest link. That's what I've always believed in team building things, and we all have the same mission, and yet we can all achieve our individual goals by giving into this shared pot of what we're all contributing to and showing up. And I think the biggest thing with trust to me typically involves how we deal with change, and how when a song gets cut or a piece of blocking gets shifted or a prop gets moved, sometimes that stays, sometimes they revert back to the original the next day, and sometimes it just leads
Mm.
to another brilliant discovery. But something I've learned through this process, just one of the longest processes I've ever been through, is how to be, once again, patient within that process, and
Hmm.
having that trust in the creatives and the people who are around us, to know that we all take time to see our vision come to fruition. And so we all have to allow that sometimes one of us is taking more of the lead and sometimes one of us is being led more. And that trust is, you can't do it without that.
There's so many different facets to your talent. You're an actor, you're a musician, you're a writer. How those disciplines lend themselves to one another as you made your Broadway debut? Congratulations, by the way. And how do you think that'll impact the way that you now approach your work on screen?
Yeah, that's a great question. Um, I think it's just a holistic journey. It all influences everything. The more work that I do in any story and in any artistic medium, the more it influences everything. And I love kind of having a varied approach to how I get into anything. So it's nice to have structure and to know, oh, cool. Let's say I'm doing this role in a film, and yeah, you might have to learn the lines or do a table read or meet something, but like I might pick up my guitar one day and start strumming and making up a song that I feel like the role maybe would connect with something. I might meet with a friend and go on a walk. Like there's so many creative ways to take all of my passions and things that I enjoy. I love sports. I've always played my entire life. Like using the voice, the mind, the body, painting, writing to get into whatever the story is and the bones of the story that I'm working on. Um, that's one of my favorite things about what I do. And so for me, it's actually, if someone were flying the wall, it wouldn't look that different from film to TV to stage. It's that's pretty similar. I think what's different a lot that I'm realizing though is just the timeline of things. And then with theater, just the repetitive nature of it, and it's so ephemeral, which is so exciting,
Mm,
but also it's exhilarating, but it's very challenging. And it's you're only as good as your last performance, whereas in film, if you get that take and you get that cut and that edit, it can be saved forever.
mm.
I think it's just a slightly different mindset. um I'm learning so much though from everyone I work with, which is always true, and that's really exciting. um and I think with theater in particular, because this is what I grew up doing, it's a lot like coming back home. And I think there's something really beautiful to that, because it just connects us all even further back with our inner child and how we got started with all of this. And being in front of people when there's blood and sweat and in such a feral kind of gritty show as we're in, I couldn't have wished for a, a more exciting, more grounded, and true story to be a part of as my first foray into the Broadway world.
Yeah.
Um, and I remember when I was in LA speaking to people saying, I would really love to be a part of a musical, but the right kind, with this kind of edge to it, that kind of story. And I'm really interested in these themes of masculinity in the world right now. Like I remember saying these things, um, and then here I am. So just feel very fortunate.
You also get that immediate response with theater from the audience too, which I imagine is so much fun to feel off of for your performance each night. And as you brought your interpretation of Bob to life, having been so familiar with the source material and the film, what's something that you wanted to make sure was translated from page to stage, and what's something new that you brought to him?
Hmm. What's really cool is I got to talk to Leif Garrett, who was the original, and Susie Hinton, of course, has been
Hmm.
integral to our process. And everyone's always said the same thing: make it your own. But what's cool is the Danya Tam, our wonderful director, she would a lot of times talk about, when talking about character building, she would talk about the ghosts of these characters and the people who've played them before and the people who will play them. And you
Mm.
know, speaking about things holistically, about like our sweat and things being in the dirt that's on that stage and how that lives on. And I think what's really exciting too is that you know, with the story, everything that's already been done with these characters and in the film and through the book and perceptions of it, they live on, whether I try to or not to embody it, and we're none of us are there to do an impersonation. you know Joshua Boone's wonderful. He's not there to like copy Matt Dillon, Brody's
Yeah.
not, we're all making it. I talked to Garrett and like it's like I'm not being him, but inherently in speaking the words, living through that, and now the time we're now, the ghost of that continues to live on. You know what I mean? And through me, and then will be through me to others and in turn
Yeah.
in different ways. And so I think it's just trusting that and having fun with that and being playful within that, that it's sacred, but it's also fun. You know what I mean? And I think for me, it just always comes down to finding as many colors and shades to show, especially when it's a quote unquote villainous character that can so easily be boxed into one type of thing. And especially in a medium and musical theater where we've seen that many times, where in some cases maybe that works for the show, but that's not what The Outsiders is. And so
Hmm.
that was just one of the most key things. And Danya, my final callback, telling me before I left the room saying, "Hey, Kev, are you really ready to go there? Are you really ready to do what I'm asking for you? You know, like I'm asking you to really go there and do this." And I said, "Of course, of course." I didn't realize how hard that was going to be, but I've just developed a wonderful partnership with Danya, and she's incredible, and she's guided us through all of this. And that was one of the most pivotal moments because I got what I asked for. I got that challenge, and now I
Hmm.
get to do it every day, and I have learned so much.
Yeah.
You know.
There's such a commitment that you're bringing to your performance, as well as this vulnerability. And there's such a hustle and bustle when you're working in theater and a production like this. But this is also your Broadway debut. Have you found time for yourself to carve out space and really embrace this moment?
I haven't had that much time yet, Kev. Not that much. However, breathing is important. Just taking a breath, looking around, taking it all in. I had a wonderful opening night weekend on the Saturday night after opening. A lot of my closest family and friends all got together,
Mm,
and my mom put together just a nice thing after the show where I could be with everyone at the same time, um, who saw it, and so many of these people that have just been there with me since day one. And that was one of the most impactful moments to just settle into this reality with the people that I'm closest with. And that's continued now. I've had friends from my school and everything coming, and other friends and relatives and people, just showing their support and coming. That's what makes it most real to me, is sharing those moments with people. And then, frankly, it's moments like this. It's talking about what I'm doing and taking a second to really,
mm,
start to have some perspective with it that helps. But I think since day one, what I realized was I'm gonna stay present day to day, and I tend to be someone where it's more like I want to enjoy it while I'm in it, and once it's done or coming to an end,
mhm.
that's usually then when it's easier for me to back up and say, "Whoa, that happened." I can kind of observe it, but while I'm in it, man.
You touched upon this earlier, but one of the themes of this story is chosen family. You can tell the immense love that you all have for each other on and off the stage. What is the story behind So Saturdays and that tradition?
Oh my gosh. I mean, I don't know the exact specifics, but I remember we were in Tulsa, we were in Oklahoma. Emma, who's playing Cherry, she found a shirt in the Outsiders House Museum area that, I think said the yellow shirt that says like Soch on it or something.
Mm,
And she got it, and I said, Emma, where did you get that? Like I didn't see that. And I went, and Dan Barry plays Paul, who we share a dressing room together. He also, he was new to the show at that point too, and so we were together. We kind of looked at each other, and I said, like, let's get a handful of these and bring them back for the boys, who are the other social guys with us. And so we got a handful of them. We kind of, some of us cut them up or did whatever with it. And our first day of rehearsal, we handed some of them out, and that kind of started it. And then I can't remember. I don't know if it was me. I don't know if it was Barton. I don't know who it was that like said the words like "So Saturday." If it was RJ, like, but it kind of started like that during rehearsal process, and we did it a handful of times, and it was a really beautiful thing because it created a unity, and also
yeah,
story. Susie Hinton wrote it, and it's like greasers. Let's go greasers. And even though that's the crux of the story, like we have to be like, let's go socials to create that contrast and the honesty of what's really going on. You know what I mean? And so it went from being something that I think was kind of a sweet way for us to come together and get even closer as a cast, especially with some of the new people. And I think it actually really supported the story,
yeah.
and supported the kind of camaraderie of what we're doing. Um, And then fast forward to this past Saturday, which I missed because I had to leave the theater before curtain call. But there's Saturday nights on Broadway, which are new to me, which I still now haven't done, which is called Snob. And it's something where you kind of do celebratory, like toast or something after a show, and different people can.
Mm,
And so we were going to do so Saturday and do that with my dressing room with Dan and Emma's dressing room. But I was not able to attend because I was in the ER. So the next one I will be there.
yeah. And I think that to your point, that does bring that conflict on stage that's so believable and so engrossing to watch. And, every night on Broadway is different, like you said. You never know who's going to be in the audience. I've just got a fun question for you. Who's somebody that hasn't been to the show that you hope makes an appearance throughout this run?
I would love for the rest of the cast and the creatives from the original movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, a handful have come. We've gotten. I mean, Matt Dillon was just here, and Susie. But I would love for those people to come and just share with us in what we've created, and and I think that would just be really special all around um, to share that with them.
Yeah. I have one final question for you. I know that you love living in the present, but I feel like this project is going to open so many doors for you. As you look ahead, is there a dream role or story that you would love to bring to life, either in front of or behind the camera?
I with this question, it's a great question. I tend to always say it's the next role to come because whatever I'm doing, like you said, like that is what I want to be doing in that moment. Like I like to
Mm,
align myself with the thing I'm doing is what I'm supposed to be doing, what I am doing. It's where I'm at. I stay where my feet are. Um, I would say to give you almost some more specifics of like adjectives, words. Like I would love to continue to work with people that both challenge me and inspire me, and to be surrounded by people that I know I do my best work when I'm with people who I'm inspired by, when I'm with people who I think are incredible, and whether that's the creatives, the cast, the crew, whoever I'm around, that's what's going to bring the best out of me.
mm.
So that's important. And whether it's doing another wonderful musical or a play, or whether it's doing a film or a TV show, um, I mean, I love all of it. And as long as the work is true and grounded, and who I'm working with bring the best out of me, I'm always going to bring it. And so I'm kind of just opening the wings, setting sails, and I'm going to see what's starting to come down the pipeline.